Hello, and welcome to my channel and this new series, Journey to Med, where I am trying my best and my very hardest to help medical applicants achieve their dreams and their goals by getting into medical school. So today I'm going to be talking to you all about the personal statement and how to write your personal statement for the medical course to give you the best chance to get an interview offer. So this video is actually organized in 5 different parts. The first part will be looking at the basic overview of the personal statement. So what is a personal statement? Very general. Then we'll move on to the general skills that you have to demonstrate as a medical applicant in your personal statement. Then we'll move on to 4 things that I recommend you do during your personal statement writing journey. And then I'll move on to 4 things that you should not do, 4 things that really you should avoid to do. And then I'm going to finish with the few resources that I have used while I was writing my own personal statement. So if this interests you, please stick around. Please click on the like button so I know that this type of content interests you, and please share this video to other people that could also benefit from the content. And like always, if you have any other type of question regarding this video, please comment down below or contact me through DMs on Instagram. So now that all of this is out of the way, let's get into the video. So let's start with the first section of this video, which is the basic overview of the personal statement. And to open this section off, I think we have to start with the most basic but yet the most fundamental question, which is, what is the personal statement? I'm sure that a lot of you here already know what the personal statement is, but maybe some of you might not, and it's always good to start at the basics so we all know exactly what we're aiming for. So the UCAS website actually defines the personal statement as follows. A personal statement supports your application to study at a university or college. It's a chance for you to articulate why you'd like to study a particular course or subject, and what skills and experience you possess that show your passion for your chosen field. And so with this definition, what I really like is the fact that they use the word chance, which is a very positive word. And I think that it's something that you have to keep with you while you're writing your personal statement, is that writing this personal statement is a chance. You have to change your mindset. It's a positive thing. It's an opportunity. And it really gives you the opportunity and the ability for you to talk about yourself and demonstrate all the experience and demonstrate your passion for the subject that you chose to pursue to the admissions team. And so this actually will give them kind of a first impression of who you really are. And also as a medical student, these are kind of the first documents that the admissions team will see and will use to kind of see and try to gauge if you have the right qualities and the right mindset to actually become a medical student, but then afterwards become a doctor and become a good doctor. So it's a really good thing. So it's a place where you can actually just talk about yourself. I know sometimes it can be hard, but it's an opportunity for you to talk about yourself. So now the second thing that we can talk about with this personal statement is kind of some statistics about the personal statement, let's say. So the personal statement is a document that you write. It has to be 4,000 characters and it includes the spaces, or 47 lines, whichever comes first. This is very important because I thought that it was just 47 lines, like a kind of rough idea of how many lines 4,000 characters was, but actually it's not. If you wrote 4,000 characters but you wrote 48 lines, then you don't meet the criteria, basically. So just be careful of that. 4,000 characters or 47 lines, whichever comes first. So now that all of the basic stats are out of the way, we can start answering the question of like, what should you actually write about in your personal statement as a medical applicant? And so I think that the first and the most fundamental thing you have to write about, even though as medical applicants we don't really like this part, is answering the question, why medicine? What led you to medicine? What interests you in the subject? Why have you chosen to do medicine and not a biomedical course? Why have you chosen to do medicine and not become a nurse or become other different types of jobs that you can do in the healthcare industry? Why medicine specifically? Why have you made this choice? Why are you committing to that many years of work and very hard work to become a doctor? Why? So that's the first thing you have to answer. So then I think it's also important to talk about what have you done academically to show your passion and your interest for medicine. So maybe you can talk about what A-level subjects you chose. Maybe you can talk about maybe some research projects that you've done. Maybe you can talk about being part of a science fair at school, or reading research articles, reading the news about medicine, reading a lot of different books about medicine. You also have to talk about things that you have done outside academics and outside everything that's related to school to show that you have a strong passion and you're willing to use your time to like devote to other people and to show that you really have a passion and it goes beyond the school. And so for that, you can do your doctor shadowings, you can do volunteering and other different types of things to show that you're really invested. And you can talk about these in your personal statement. Because, becoming a doctor, yes, it's academic. Yes, there's a lot of books involved. But it's not only that. When you're on the field, you don't have your books with you. And you need to, it's a human job. You need to be able to talk with people and relate to people. So that's also what people are trying to see when you're writing your personal statement, that you also have these qualities and you also have had these experiences. Another thing you can talk about your hobbies. Yes, medicine is very important. Yes, academics are very important. But who are you as a person? What else do you like about medicine? Because surely you don't only love medicine. You might also love doing the piano. You might also love a type of sport. You might also love doing some debates. Everybody is different. So what else can you bring to the table? That's also something you can talk about. And then something that's also important is your conclusion. How do you conclude? So you conclude with a positive note, saying maybe that with all of this that you've talked about, you know that you have the abilities and you know that you've developed the qualities required to become a doctor and a good doctor, to become a medical student, anything like that. But just conclude with a positive note. Don't say, I know that the job is very difficult, but I have the qualities to do it. No, show that you have the qualities to embrace your passion and to embrace the job, however difficult it is. And I guess that this would lead me maybe to one of my first tips in this basic overview of the personal statement part, which is the fact that once you've kind of, kind of what to talk about, what I've talked about previously, then you need to now take all the information you have and try to make your information that you have flow. So create paragraphs that flow, like think about it as if you were writing a story, not like a catalog of what you've done. A story. People want to know who you are. And so it has to flow. And you have to try and find a way to make your paragraphs flow and the whole thing to be a whole coherent 4,000 word essay, let's say. Also, something that could also be pretty interesting to talk about if you're an international student or an EU student, if you have the characters, is maybe touch on why you want to study in the UK. What made you go to the UK and not just stay in your home country or go somewhere else? That's also something that you could talk about. So now let's move on to the second part of this video, which is the general skills that you will actually need to demonstrate as a medical applicant in your personal statement. Because the people that are going to be reading your personal statement, like the admissions team of the schools you're applying to, they need to be able to see and read actually in your personal statement that you have the qualities to become a good medical student and further down the line to become a good doctor. And so they're looking for skills that you've developed over time, such as empathy, compassion, teamwork, being able to communicate effectively, being able to manage your time, being able to be motivated, hardworking, disciplined, and many other things like that. But then they also want to make sure that you're interested in medicine for the right reasons. So for this, you could show what you've done to prove that you have a real interest in medicine. So everything you've read, all the research you've done, all the books you've read, things like that. But they also want to make sure that you know what becoming a doctor is. And you know that, yes, it's an amazing job, but there are difficulties and you are aware of them. So this you can show with the fact that you've done shadowings and that you've done volunteering. Okay, so now we can move on to the 4 things you should definitely be doing during your personal statement writing journey. So the first thing that you should be doing is that if you already have a broad list or a broad idea of what universities you want to apply to, you should definitely go on their websites to see what are their personal statement requirements, for a few main reasons. Some universities will have some very specific requirements. So maybe they're going to tell that all candidates that apply for their universities should have teamwork skills, should have communication skills, and should show that they have a strong interest for medicine and that they've done doctor shadowings, for example. And so that means that if you're applying to this university, you can tailor your personal statement to their requirements and fit in their requirements, and that's a good thing. Then you can also know that some universities do not use the personal statement at all. So for example, Brighton and Sussex Medical School doesn't use the personal statement, and they say it on their website. So if you're only applying to schools that don't use the personal statement or that put very, very little weight and consideration on your personal statement, then you might want to understand what what are they actually looking for apart from the personal statement, and therefore maybe put a bit less effort in your personal statement writing. And the last thing is you can also understand that some universities, such as Manchester University, actually require you to complete another form after you've applied that's not the personal statement, where you can develop more about your idea. So that might be something like, oh, I'm writing my personal statement, but I know that they're going to send me another form, so let me, on another document, develop a bit more my idea, so when the document from Manchester comes, I know exactly what to write. So this already gives you an idea of how to write your personal statement and how much effort you should actually be putting into the writing process. And if you want to know a bit more about how the personal statement is used in all medical schools in the UK, I will leave a link down below that explains this to you guys. Okay, so the next tip that I have for you guys is the fact that you should start thinking about your personal statement very early on in your journey to medical school. I'm not saying start writing your personal statement early. I'm saying start thinking about your personal statement early. And how do you do that? Well, you keep a journal, meaning that in that journal you will write any relevant reflections that you have on your work experience, on your voluntary work. And I have a whole video on work experience and how you can actually use it in your application that we'll have linked down below. Then you should also talk about all of the reflections you have on what being a doctor actually means. What are the positive sides? What are the negative sides? What do you think about all of these things? You should also talk about anything that you've read or wrote, and what do you think about the things that you've read. If you read an article about the gut, what do you think about it? What are your reflections? Do you like it? Does it interest you? Does it fascinate you? Things like that. Then you should also talk about what are the qualities that are required as a doctor that you've observed, and do you have them, and how can you demonstrate them? And you should also talk about why do you want to become a doctor in all of this journal. So you can just journal and write about this anytime you actually have an idea. So this means that when you move to the actual writing part of the personal statement, you already have kind of a big rough draft of everything you could talk about that's already written for you. So you just have to transfer the ideas that you wrote about and you journaled about during your whole medical journey and start writing about them with maybe more style and more eloquence. So the third tip that I have for you guys is the fact that in your personal statement, you need to show and demonstrate and not just state. And that's extremely important. And that's also why in my second tip, I told you to keep a journal. Because keeping a journal and actually constantly write and reflect on everything you do will prevent you from actually making this mistake and just stating the things you've done. Because I'm going to be totally honest with you guys. If you just say you've done something, it's not enough. If you just say that you're motivated, it's not enough. The admissions team wants to believe you, and they want to see the proof, and they want to know how you think and what you think about everything you've done. So you have to say, I've done work experience maybe in oncology, and that's how it made me feel. And I saw this specific patient, and I saw how he was treated, and that gave me hope that one day I will be like this doctor, and I will be able to help this patient or patients similar to him in the same way that he did. Or you can talk about your voluntary experience and show that caring for someone can make the whole process for a patient that much different. And if doctors don't care about their patients and don't show compassion and empathy, it's not the same experience. And the patients might feel more pain or things like that. They need to know that you've thought about what you've seen and that you've reflected on it. And that's definitely what they want to see. So please, please, please don't just state, you have to show and demonstrate. So now the last tip that I have for you guys is the fact that everything you write should always tie back to medicine. Because realistically, you're applying for a medical school, you're trying to get into a medical school. And so your personal statement has to really always be tied back to medicine. You know, the main topic is why do you want to go to my school and why do you want to study medicine? So it always has to tie back. Because for example, I love musical theater and I've done musical theater for maybe the past 4 years, let's say. If I write in my personal statement, I have done musical theater, that's not useful to them. That might even be a bit irrelevant, or maybe a lot, very irrelevant. But if I say I've done musical theater for the past 4 years, then it says, okay, she can be persistent and disciplined with something over time. And then I say, and I was working with a very big team of castmates, and we had to work together to create scenes, and we had to work together on stage to make sure that everybody stays safe and nobody falls off stage, and make sure that everybody has the right attire that they need to bring, things like that. Then it shows, okay, she has also teamwork skills and she's able to communicate effectively with other teammates to make sure that, you know, that everything runs smoothly once the show goes on. So things like that. So everything that you write about should always tie back to medicine. Okay, so now that I've talked about the 4 things you should definitely be doing during your personal statement writing journey, I'm now going to move on to the 4 things you should definitely not be doing, and the things that you should be cautious about. So the first tip that I actually have for you guys is the fact that don't think that writing your personal statement is going to be the story of 2 drafts. Don't think that it's going to be a quick process. I kind of lured myself and thought that it was going to be something that's going to be pretty easy because I had my journal already. I was like, oh, it's not going to be that hard. It's not going to be easy, but it's not going to be that hard. I'm not going to have to write that many drafts. Big mistake. You're going to have to take the time, and it's a lengthy process. It's normal. You're not going to find directly, like in one go, the exact word, the exact sentence that you want to write and put in that personal statement where you only have 4,000 words, and that's normal. You need to know that this is going to be long, and it's okay, and everybody's in the same boat. When I wrote my personal statement, it took me 18 drafts to get the final product. So just understand and know that it's going to be pretty lengthy, and it's going to be a lot of back and forth and deleting and rewriting, and it's normal. It's a process. It's a journey. Then the second thing that I want to talk to you about is the fact that you should not be disheartened when people are rereading your personal statement and they tell you that maybe some paragraphs or some parts of your personal statement are useless and don't really have that big of a role to play in your personal statement. I know that taking criticism is sometimes difficult. It's not the most comfortable of situations when people criticize the work you've spent so much time doing, but it's good and it helps you improve. So realize that those people have an outside look of what you've done, and it's normal that what you think you have done and what you think you produced is very good. It's normal, it's human, but it's also good to have the opinion of other people that are outside of your bubble and can give you some very constructive and objective criticism to help you improve. And you should take all the criticism you have and pick and choose which ones you want to actually listen to because you think that they're relevant, and then improve from them. And that's a good thing. Turn criticism into a good thing. The third thing I want to talk to you about is the fact that you should not use cliches. When you write your personal statement, you have to talk about yourself, right? You have to give a first impression of who you are as an applicant, and to give to the schools are like, oh, I like this person, I like how this person is able to express themselves, etc. But you should not come up as fake. You should always be authentic to your true self and what you have done and what you have experienced and what are the reflections that you actually have. So you should, when you write something, it should come from you and not from what you think other people want you to say so they will give you a spot. You know what I mean? Because if they really love your personal statement and they're like, oh my God, this person is amazing, I love everything, it's so well written, it's amazing. And then you arrive in the interview and you try to fit that weird persona that doesn't fit you, they're going to sense that energy and they're going to be like, oh, red flag, yeah, no, out. So when you're writing your personal statements, you should always make sure that what you're writing about is true, that what you're writing about is exactly what you felt, and that what you're writing about is something that you could expand on and develop in more detail if needed. Because the personal statement is kind of a document that they can use to make sure that everything you talk about is true. They can ask you anything about your personal statement at interviews. They can be like, oh, talk to me about that little boy in more detail. And give me a lot more detail about this. Or they can be like, oh, but the publication you wrote about, can you talk to me more about it? Like, what other things that interest you in that? Or they can be like, oh, what other articles that you read in that journal? Things like that. So you have to be true to yourself, and that's going to allow you to go very far in the journey. Trust me. Then the last thing that you should not be doing while writing your personal statement is adding too much detail about a specific example. So when you're writing your examples and talking about your experiences, you should always be very objective and critical. Is what I'm writing about or is what I'm using as an example useful? Yes, no. If no, cut it and find another example. And when you're talking about a specific example, what do you want to talk about while you're talking about that example? Would you rather spend your characters on saying that where you volunteered or where you did your work experience and with who and when? Or would you rather talk about your reflections and what you learned from that experience? And so the mistake that you can make is adding too much detail, like, oh, I did this at this place at that date for that many days, and it was sunny and it was rainy. No, we don't care about this. We care about what did you actually learn from this experience? How did you grow? What skills did you develop? That's what we care about. So just be wary of that and just catch yourself when you're trying to explain in too much detail. Because realistically, if they want more detail, they'll ask you at interviews. Then we can finally move on to the fifth part of my video, which is what resources have I used. So the first resource that I used was my academy that I was part of. They helped me actually reread my personal statement and give me an objective view and objective criticism on what was useful and what was not useful. You know, telling me that paragraph there that you wrote, yeah, scrap that. That's not useful. You're wasting characters on that. Of course, the criticism sometimes was harsh to accept, but it was for the better. It helped me improve, and that's a good thing. Then I also used some online resources, such as the Medic portal, where they give you kind of guidance on how to write your personal statement, some tips, some tricks, and some advice. I also used the blog of Life of a Medic, which I'll leave down below, where she talks about the personal statement and some tips and tricks as well. And I also used the webpage that was made by Oxford University, where they go through a real-life personal statement that's a pretty good personal statement, and they explain exactly what the person was doing and why it was useful or not. And so that gives you kind of a rough idea of what universities are looking for, and that was a pretty good thing to look at. I also read a few personal statements online to give me an idea of like what other people are talking about. But at the end of the day, you have to talk about your own experience and write your own personal statement. Plagiarism is not okay. So you can look at these resources to have an idea of what it has to look like, but by no means you can copy what's already written. So yeah, I'm done. I hope that this video was helpful to you, that you've been able to learn something. If you haven't seen them already, I've done a video that compares the UCAT and the BMAT, a video all about the BMAT, a video all about the UCAT, and a video all about work experience. Also stay tuned for future videos about other aspects of the application process for medicine and other videos just about student life in general. If this interests you, please subscribe to my channel so I know that you like this type of content. And yeah, I guess I'm done. Yeah.